gambar atas, tapi kita lihat pada skrin yang dihasilkan. Okay, di mana warna merah ini adalah suatu penggetar. Sebenarnya radar ini belum dipasang lagi. Okay, ini adalah satu penggetar, di mana penggetar ini akan bergetar di dalam tangki riak ini dan dia akan menghasilkan corak-corak gelombang air. Okay, ini disambungkan kepada bekalan kuasa. Kita disambungkan kepada bekalan kuasa.
Cikgu,
Ya saya.
boleh tutup satu mic tak? Dia macam double lah.
Okey.
Terima kasih.
Okey, terima kasih Rabi. Rabi tadi. Okey. Dan kalau terlihat ini ada satu cermin. Cermin ini biasanya diletakkan dalam tangki riak ini untuk menghasilkan kedalaman air yang berbeza. Contohnya kalau penuh, kedalaman air adalah pada suatu arah tertentu. Bila kita masukkan ini sebenarnya perspek. Kita masukkan perspek ke dalam air ni, bila kita masukkan, air akan menjadi lebih cetek. Jadi fungsi perspek ini adalah untuk menghasilkan kedalaman air yang berbeza. Ini contoh tangki riak, pandangan hadapan tangki riak. Ini saya rasa dalam konteks awak. Okey, ini lampu ataupun stroboskop. Tapi ini saya rasa di makmal tak. Kalau makmal sekolah kita tak ada ni. Fungsi stroboskop, okey, saya nak buat catatan. Fungsi stroboskop ialah membekukan gelombang ataupun supaya gelombang dilihat dalam keadaan pegun. Okey, ini penjana gelombang, pencelup tadi, bergetar, kemudian diisikan air. Okey, kita lihat bentuk gelombang pada skrin ni. Okay. Ini pandangan sisi di mana corak gelombang dipantulkan ke skrin. Jadi kita lihat di sini adalah bentuk gelombang. Dan ini adalah bekalan kuasa dan unit kawalan. Okay, terdapat dua jenis penggetar yang boleh digunakan. Okey, kalau penggetar satah, dia akan menghasilkan gelombang-gelombang satah. Jadi contoh gelombang satah dihasilkan, dan penggetar sfera akan menghasilkan gelombang bulat. Gelombang bulat ni terasa seolah-olah awak isikan air dalam besin, kemudian celup jari awak. Awak nampak gelombang dihasilkan, gelombang itu adalah gelombang membulat. Ataupun nak ambil seketul batu, baling ke dalam tasik. Gelombang dihasilkan adalah gelombang membulat. Okey. Ada soalan berkaitan dengan struktur ringkas tangki riak dan juga berkaitan dengan ciri-ciri gelombang sebelum ni. Ada soalan?
Macam mana tengok amplitude dalam benda?
Macam mana?
Macam mana nak tengok amplitude, nak tahu amplitude daripada satu benda, bukan graf.
Okey. Kalau gelombang air, awak lihat ketinggian gelombang tadi. Kalau tinggi gelombang tu tinggi, amplitude yang tinggi. Boleh? Ukur ketinggian gelombang air. Katakan awak nampak gelombang air. Okey. Ketinggian gelombang air ni adalah mewakili amplitude. Dan juga biasanya amplitude mewakili tenaga. Kalau tenaga tu besar, amplitude-nya besar. Contohnya awak berada di pantai, awak rasa ombak yang sampai tadi kuat. Itu disebabkan oleh amplitude gelombang yang besar. Jawab soalan tak, Azim?
Dapat.
Okey, soalan lain? Okey, kalau tak ada, kita teruskan. Pelembapan dan resonan. Okey. Banyak gelombang yang kita belajar form 3. Okey, pelembapan dan resonan. Kita lihat kalau di kedai saya rasa pernah lihat alat ni. Okay. Sistem ayunan yang disesarkan kemudian dibiarkan berayun tanpa tindakan dari luar akan berayun dengan suatu frekuensi tertentu dinamakan frekuensi asli. Okay, saya nak faham konsep setakat ni. Okay. So, sistem ayunan yang disesarkan kemudian kita biarkan dia berayun tanpa kita kenakan daya luar. Tak kedapati dia akan berayun dengan satu frekuensi tertentu dan frekuensi ini kita panggil sebagai frekuensi asli. Okay, frekuensi ini dipanggil sebagai frekuensi asli. Ayunan bandur ringkas akan mengalami pelembapan apabila kita ayunkan, contohnya kita ayunkan suatu bandur ringkas. Contoh kita ada satu bandur ringkas, kita ayunkan, dia akan berayun ke kiri dan ke kanan. Okay. Lama kelamaan ayunan menjadi semakin perlahan dan akhirnya bandur tersebut akan berhenti. Kenapa ia berhenti? Kerana bandur tersebut mengalami pelembapan. Bandur mengalami pelembapan. Pelembapan ada dua jenis, iaitu pelembapan luaran dan pelembapan dalaman. Kita terlihat daripada apa yang saya share kat sini. Ayunan bandur ringkas mengalami pelembapan luaran yang ketara dan pelembapan dalaman yang tidak ketara. Okay, pelembapan ada dua, pelembapan luaran dan juga pelembapan dalaman. Okay. Bagi kes ayunan ringkas, ayunan bandur ringkas ni, pelembapan dalaman tak ketara sangat. Yang mempengaruhinya banyak disebabkan oleh pelembapan luaran. Okay. Di mana pelembapan luaran ini adalah disebabkan oleh geseran dengan udara. Geseran dengan udara. Okey. Manakala bagi getaran spring, kedua-dua pelembapan luaran dan dalaman berlaku dengan ketara. Okey, katakan suatu spring, kita biarkan berayun, itu kita sesarkan ke bawah. Okay, kemudian kita lepaskan, kita biarkan dia berayun. Bagi case spring, lama kelamaan ayunannya semakin perlahan dan berhenti disebabkan oleh pelembapan luaran dan pelembapan dalaman. Yang ini pun juga saya yakin anda belajar dalam form 3, di mana bagi case spring, pelembapan luaran dan dalaman berlaku dengan ketara. Kalau kita lihat amplitude kat sini, graf sesaran lawan masa. Graf sesaran lawan masa, nilai amplitude semakin lama semakin berkurangan. Dan akhirnya dia akan berhenti. Okay. Jika kamu diminta lukis graf pelembapan, okay, biasanya 2 markah diberikan, 2 ataupun 3 markah. Kalau 3 markah, 1 markah untuk paksi. Paksi Y sesaran, paksi X masa, dapat 1 markah. Ini saya terus terangkan teknik menjawab soalan. Dan yang kedua, markah akan diberikan berdasarkan bentuk amplitude. Kamu lukis amplitude semakin lama semakin kecil. Contoh, semakin lama amplitude semakin kecil ataupun bentuk gelombang. Okay, aku dapat markah kedua. Dan markah ketiga ialah sela masa. Okay, selang masa ni seragam ataupun tempoh seragam. Contohnya buat T, 2T, 3T. Jarak antara yang ni seragam. Okay, ini markah ke 3. Okay. Di mana dalam 3 markah kat sini awak boleh dapat, dan jika awak lupa buat salah satu, awak akan hilang 1 markah. Okay. Daripada graf pelembapan ini, kita akan dapati bahawa apabila masa bertambah, nilai amplitude semakin lama semakin kecil. Itu daripada graf ini. Saya pandang balik supaya nampak lebih jelas kat graf asal. Amplitude A1 besar daripada A2, A2 besar pada A3, dan A3 besar daripada A4. Ini menunjukkan bahawa semakin lama amplitude semakin kecil dan akhirnya ia akan berkurang. Okey. Darjah 5.24 menunjukkan graf amplitude melawan masa bagi ayunan bandur rikas. Okey, kalau kita buat graf amplitude lawan masa, kita akan dapati bahawa semakin lama amplitudenya semakin kecil. Dan jika berterusan, akhirnya ayunan tadi akan berhenti. Daya berkala ialah daya yang bertindak pada selang masa tertentu. Daya berkala tidak bertindak secara berterusan. Ini istilah untuk daya berkala. Itu kita katakan sebagai suatu daya yang bertindak pada selang masa tertentu. Gambar yang saya tunjuk pada awal tadi. Ayunan yang amplitude berkurang akan menunjukkan sesuatu sistem yang sedang berayun mengalami kehilangan tenaga secara beransur-ansur. Dan lama kelamaan ayunan tadi akan berhenti. Fenomena ini kita panggil sebagai pelembapan. Okey. Okey, seperti saya katakan tadi, pelembapan ada 2 jenis, iaitu pelembapan luaran. Okey. Di mana tarifannya ialah sistem ayunan kehilangan tenaga bagi mengatasi daya geseran ataupun rintangan udara. Contohnya katakan bandul bila berayun, ia bergeser dengan udara, semakin tumpat ataupun semakin tinggi ketepatan udara, semakin cepat ia berhenti. Kalau sistem berayun, jika kita gantikan medium udara dengan air, contohnya kita katakan kita ayunkan bandul dalam air, kita akan dapati dalam air ia akan berhenti dengan lebih cepat. Ataupun contohnya katakan ada satu bandul, saya tak boleh lukis ni. Okey. Bandul bila dia berayun, kita ambil masa dia berhenti, kemudian semasa dia berayun kita masukkan dalam air. Kita masukkan dalam air, kita akan dapati bahawa dalam air ia akan berhenti dengan mudah ataupun cepat. Ini kerana dalam air geseran bandul dengan air lebih tinggi, jadi sistem ayunan tadi akan kehilangan tenaga dengan lebih mudah ataupun banyak. Okey. Kemudian pelembapan dalaman. Sistem ayunan kehilangan tenaga kerana regangan dan mapatan. Okey, regangan dan mapatan zarah-zarah yang bergetar dalam sistem tersebut. Okey, kehilangan tenaga kerana regangan dan mapatan zarah-zarah yang bergetar dalam sistem tersebut. Jadi, saya harap awak boleh faham apa dimaksudkan dengan pelembapan luaran dan juga pelembapan dalaman. Okey. Jadi pelembapan secara umumnya kita boleh katakan sebagai pengurangan amplitud. Okay. Pengurangan amplitud suatu sistem ayunan akibat kehilangan tenaga. Okey, pelembapan ialah pengurangan amplitud suatu sistem ayunan akibat kehilangan tenaga. Okay. Dan perkara yang awak perlu faham, semasa pelembapan berlaku, frekuensi ayunan kekal. Yang berubah hanyalah amplitud. Itu sebabnya bila lukis graf tadi, sela masa mesti sama. Jarak ataupun sela masa mesti sama kerana frekuensinya tetap. Okey, begitu juga kalau lukis graf amplitud lawan masa, kalau kita lihat sela masanya mesti seragam ataupun sama. Okey, kesan pelembapan ini kita dapat atasi dengan menggunakan daya luar secara berkala ke atas suatu sistem yang sedang berayun. Jadi kita recap balik apa dimaksudkan dengan daya luar berkala. Okay, kita lihat balik daya luar berkala. Okey. Daya luar berkala ialah daya yang bertindak pada selang masa yang tertentu. Contohnya katakan apabila kita pergi ke taman, okey, kamu pergi ke taman, kamu berada di atas buaian, kamu kenakan daya supaya buaian bergerak. Apabila buaian dah hampir perlahan, kamu tolak lagi. Jadi buaian terus berayun, bila dia perlahan, kamu tolak lagi. Itu menunjukkan bahawa kamu menggunakan daya yang berkala. Tujuan menggunakan daya yang berkala ialah supaya ayunan tadi berlaku secara berterusan. Okay. Kesan pelembapan dapat diatasi dengan menggunakan daya luar berkala ke atas sistem yang sedang berayun. Tindakan daya luar berkala memindahkan tenaga ke dalam sistem ayunan untuk menggantikan tenaga yang telah hilang. Contohnya katakan buaian tadi, apabila kita nampak buaian semakin perlahan, kita tolak buaian tersebut supaya dia berayun dengan lebih laju. Apabila kita tolak buaian, kita telah memindahkan tenaga. Jadi tenaga yang telah hilang disebabkan oleh pelembapan digantikan oleh tenaga daripada daya tolakan yang kita kenakan tadi. Okey. Kemudian sistem ayunan yang dikenakan daya luar berkala dikatakan sedang melakukan ayunan paksa. Okey. Bila kita kenakan daya luar secara berkala, kita katakan sistem tadi melakukan ayunan paksa. Okey. Ada soalan setakat ni? Boleh faham tak apa dimasukkan dengan pelembapan?
Boleh.
Boleh tak? Okey, seterusnya kita pergi pada tajuk seterusnya iaitu resonans. Okay, apakah dimasukkan dengan resonans? Resonans berlaku apabila suatu sistem ayunan dikenakan daya luar yang mempunyai frekuensi yang sama dengan frekuensi asli ayunan tersebut. Okay, ulang balik. Resonans berlaku apabila suatu sistem ayunan dikenakan daya luar yang mempunyai frekuensi sama dengan frekuensi asli ayunan tersebut. Okay, contoh. Katakan suatu jambatan. Jambatan sebenarnya dia bergetar dengan frekuensi asli sendiri. Ataupun tingkap rumah, cermin rumah kita. Tingkap rumah sebenarnya bergetar pada frekuensi asli sendiri. Cuma kita tak nampak je. Dia molekul-molekul dalam tu bergetar. Apabila kita kenakan daya luar yang sama dengan frekuensi asli sesuatu objek, resonan akan berlaku. Okay, kalau kita lihat contoh gambarkan sini, cawan pecah. Sebab apa? Sebab berlakunya resonan di mana pada keadaan awal, cawan kaca ni bergetar pada frekuensi asli tertentu. Kalau kita kenakan suatu ayunan lain yang mana ataupun kenakan suatu daya yang sama dengan frekuensi cawan ini akan pecah. Okay, saya akan tunjuk video. Rasa saya ada save. Video menunjukkan bagaimana resonan berlaku. Ya. Okay, saya tunjuk daripada YouTube lah.
Grammarly can help you write quickly and confidently, so you never have to slow down at work. Stay on top of emails, documents, and more without.
Okey, ini eksperimen menunjukkan resonans.
Welcome back. I've got an interesting and unusual experiment to show you today, and it goes under the title of Barton's pendulums. The equipment looks quite complicated, but in fact it's really simple. All we've got is a wooden frame here, and hanging on this side and across to this side is just a piece of string. It's a sort of washing line on a small scale. And then hanging from that tied on is a piece of string with quite a heavy weight on it, and then some paper cones on different length strings. So the important thing is here, we've got a heavy weight hanging off our mini washing line and a series of other objects hanging off it, all of different length. So let me show you what we do with this. The first thing to do is to take the metal weight and just to lift it up and let it oscillate. And you watch the white paper cones. And after a short period of time, it settles down and you get quite a remarkable result. That most of the paper cones don't move very much, but just one of them, here you'll notice it's the one that's second longest, seems to swing up and down much more than all the others. I'll film this from the side so you can see it rather better, but this really is going to take some explaining. Right, I'm going to start it off again and have a look at what happens to the cones as it begins. So to begin with, they all tend to move a bit, but after a few moments it settles down and you find that really only this second to longest one vibrates with a really large amplitude and the rest almost stop vibrating at all. Sure, A-level students will need to know about resonance curves and will appreciate that they're all vibrating slightly, but the one that has the same natural frequency as the frequency of the driver here will be the one that absorbs energy the best. Time for an explanation. And if you're doing A-level physics, you really do need to know about this. So I'll go into a little bit of detail, but not too much. The first thing to notice is that the weight is the thing that has the energy to start off with. We call that the driver, and it's going to oscillate up and down. It'll be shaking the string along the top, what I referred to as the washing line a bit earlier on, and shaking where these cones are attached to it. But the important thing is that if I swing the little short one, it swings up and down very rapidly. And if I swing the very long one, it swings up and down with a lower frequency. It doesn't go from side to side quite as rapidly. So each one of these lengths has a different natural frequency, a high frequency for the short one and a low frequency for the long one. So now we know that each one of the paper cones likes to swing at a different frequency. They've all got different natural frequencies. Let's start it again. And of course, this pendulum swinging, the driver with its energy, is imparting energy to the cones. But you'll notice the one that's gaining the most energy is the one that swings at the same frequency as it does. In other words, the natural frequency of this cone here is the same as the frequency of the driver. And that effect produces what we call resonance. You've seen resonance before, in fact, on the video I did with the teddy bear on the loudspeaker, where its arm began to waggle up and down at a specific frequency. And the effect you're seeing here is very similar. With resonance, what happens is that if the thing that's oscillating backwards and forwards, driving another object, has the same frequency as the natural frequency of the object that is being driven up and down, then this one will absorb energy best. The others are not very good at absorbing the energy of the oscillation because they like to oscillate at a different frequency. Resonance can be a really good thing, but there is many examples where it's a real nuisance. One of the problems you can have is with long cables, the ones that are between pylons, for example, on power lines. And if they get blown around in the wind, the mass here representing the wind, then the cable begins to hop up and down. George Stockbridge noticed this in the 1920s and invented a system rather like the one with the cone here. Because, of course, what the cone is doing is it's taking energy from the, what I call the washing line or the power cable, and it's oscillating. In other words, it's taking kinetic energy from the cable. So he had the clever thought that if he was to tie something to the cable that had the same natural frequency as the waggling that the cable was doing, then it would steal energy from it and stop it vibrating as much. And if you know where to look, you can see these on power lines and also on suspension bridge cables and in other areas. So something for you A-level students. You will know, of course, that the frequency of the driver and the driven element are the same, but they don't oscillate together. As one goes to the left, the other appears to go to the right and vice versa. They're not actually 180 degrees out of phase, but they're pi by 2 or 90 degrees out of phase. And this is something you should learn. In other words, that when this one is at the highest point, the driven element is at its midpoint. Perhaps I'll do a video at some stage of us on large swings in a playground and make the point about where do you actually push the swing. So Barton's pendulums. Barton, I think, was at Nottingham University when he invented this, and it's a really good experiment to show students, to explain how resonance works and how the energy shifts from driver to driven element if they're tuned together or both at the same natural frequency.
Okay. Saya ringkaskan. Okey, kalau terlihat di sini adalah bandul dengan panjang berbeza. Apabila panjang berbeza, frekuensi asli ladung ini juga berbeza. Ladung yang pendek seperti mana diterangkan tadi, frekuensinya lebih tinggi sebab dia berayun dengan lebih cepat berbanding dengan frekuensi yang lebih panjang. Okey. Dan di sini satu lagi ladung yang digantung dengan pemberat di mana panjang tali ini adalah sama dengan panjang salah satu ladung ini. Iaitu sama dengan panjang ladung yang kedua. Okey. Panjang ladung yang diayunkan ini sama dengan panjang ladung yang kedua. Jadi apabila kita ayunkan ladung ini, ladung-ladung lain juga akan berayun. Tapi kita kena pasti bahawa ladung yang kedua terakhir ini akan berayun dengan amplitud yang paling besar. Ini kerana frekuensi ayunan ladung yang digantung dengan pemberat ini adalah sama dengan frekuensi asli ladung yang ini. Jadi, ladung tersebut telah berayun secara ayunan paksa. Contoh,
take the metal weight and just to lift it up and
Kita
let it
gerak
oscillate.
putarkan, kita akan dapati
And
bahawa
you watch
lado
the
yang
white
kedua
paper
ini
cones.
bergetar dengan lebih
And after a short period of time,
tinggi.
it settles down and you get quite a remarkable result. That most of the paper cones don't move very much, but just
Okey,
one of them,
gerak
here
ayunannya
notice
lebih
it's the one
tinggi.
that's second longest, seems to swing up and
Jadi
down
pada
much
waktu ini
more
kita
than all the
katakan
others.
resonan
I'll
telah
film this from the side so you
berlaku.
can see it.
Kita lihat contoh lain.
If you want to sell online, make sure you stand.
Okey. Yang ini terlihat contoh bagaimana resonan berlaku boleh memecahkan cawan. Okey, sebenarnya sebelum ni kita dengar
Thanks to
mungkin
brilliant.org for supporting
teori je. Katakan kalau kita menjerit yang kuat, suatu cawan ataupun gelas kaca boleh pecah.
PBS Digital Studios. Hey yo, it's Diana, and you're watching Physics Girl. Let's just get right to it.
Yeah.
Is there like a note like ooh or ah? Or like
I think E. E is
Okay.
the best stuff. Okay. So try not to touch your lips on the glass.
Okay.
Because it does go. Yep, that's it.
Okay. I should have mentioned it was going to be really annoying. I was in New York City at the YouTube space in December with fellow YouTuber Mike Boyd, who shared a video with me that he'd made about something that I've wanted to do for years. You beat me to it, Mike Boyd. You probably didn't know I had dibs on the topic. But the topic that I had in mind was to figure out whether a non-professional singer can break a wine glass with just their voice. Because I'd seen this done before, breaking a wine glass with sound at MIT, where they broke a wine glass with audio speakers, and then the Mythbusters did it with a professional singer. But the raw, untrained human voice? Well, Mike brought some good news with him too, which is that he was able to do it. And I'll put a link to his learning video in the description. But he brought a wine glass to the space for me to try.
You're really looking to feel the vibration.
Yeah, it's on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just reduce the sweeps until you're like, feel like you're right on it. Yeah, we got it. We got it.
It's exhausting.
We got it.
Mike was telling me to try these sweeping noises up to the right pitch. I don't know.
That's times 3.
I think this is one of the few cases in life where it's easier to learn a trick if you understand the physics.
Saya ulang balik.
Also, I learned some major. I don't know.
That's times 3.
I think this is one of the few cases in life where it's easier to learn a trick if you understand the physics. Also, I learned some major tips along the way, including the obvious ones like wear safety goggles and don't try this at home. The reason this is so challenging is that the note that you have to hold has to be the glass's exact resonant frequency. We'll get to resonant frequency, but first we need to think of the glass not as something that you drink out of, but as an oscillating system. An oscillating system is a system that goes back and forth, like a playground swing. I know that back and forth is a vague definition, but there are too many different types of oscillating systems to get more specific than that. Electrically and magnetically oscillating systems, economically oscillating systems, like an economy that goes up and down. Yeah. But mechanically, these are all oscillating systems. So when you flick a wine glass, it vibrates back and forth, pushing the air, and that's what makes the ringing note that you hear. Now back to the playground swing. The swing is a totally overused analogy for explaining resonance, but it's just so good. It's an oscillating system, and it has a resonant frequency. You can describe resonant frequency two ways. One is that it's the frequency your swing will keep swinging at if you just let it go. In the wine glass, that frequency is the note it vibrates at if you flick it and let it ring. By the way, musical notes can always be described by their frequency or frequencies. Now, another way of describing resonant frequency is that if you drive your oscillating system at that frequency, it will have the maximum response in amplitude, meaning it'll have the maximum response in distance between the back and forth. So, if you push the swing at just the right moment, or in other words, you match its resonant frequency, the amplitude will increase. I know you've done this. And it'll increase more than if you pushed it at any other frequency. Now, the wine glass analog is that if you sing at the glass at its resonant frequency, your vocal cords are vibrating the air molecules that vibrate the glass and drive it at its resonant frequency. And then just like the swing will go higher and higher, the glass will vibrate or shake harder and harder. And if you shake something hard enough, it will eventually break. So that's why this is so tricky. You have to sing at the exact right frequency and hold it really loudly. I can't break this particular glass, no matter how hard I try, because I can't hold that note loud enough. So it helps to know physics and also to be able to match the right pitch. I should probably disclose that I did some musical theater and a cappella in my day, but hey, it helped with this. Goal accomplished, except the story is not finished. There was a slight difference between the glass that I broke and the one that Mike broke in his video. Mine had a tiny scratch in the top to make it easier to break. When MIT did this demo for our lecture, they told us you could do the same thing. You put a tiny little scratch in the top to give the crack some place to start. But when Mike broke his glass, he used a new, perfect, unblemished glass. And I wanted to see if I'd be capable of doing that too. So while I was home for the holidays. Can I try to break your wine glasses with my voice? Ready?
That was loud.
I'm afraid if I have a sip of my drink, my glass is gonna break.
You gonna break the other one? Break that
I'm
one.
gonna pass out.
You know what?
What?
We could do. You could be going, and I'll shoot a pellet gun at it.
Yeah, you can. Easy.
You won't notice when the glass goes shooting that way.
You break it.
Okay.
So Diana,
Yeah.
I'm trying to print a PDF file, and every time I go to print it, it puts it small on the page. Is there any way to increase that?
Wow.
You hear that?
Oh, I thought you were gonna get it. I thought you were gonna get it. I was like zooming in for dramatic effects right then, you know?
I was trying to do it with whatever wine glasses my mom had, which were made of glass. But what you really want is a glass that when you flick it, it rings, which physically means that it's not damped, which is kind of like if you greased the top of your swing so that it doesn't slow down. And then you also want one with a thin rim, which means it'll deform more. The glasses that meet these requirements are typically made out of crystal, which is totally misleading because they're not actually crystalline in the way that chemists think of crystals, as in they don't have a nice repeating molecular structure. They're just glass with some lead or something else in them. I braved the post-holiday shopping for you guys, and I bought a couple crystal glasses. So
These say crystal, have a good ring. So promising and so painful.
I'm Richard Branson, and I have a once-in-a-lifetime invitation for you. Would you like to travel to space?
Like part of the glass just leapt off.
I compared my experience later with Mike about having to sing forever at these glasses, and he had found the same thing. For new glasses with no little scratch, you have to just sing at the glass for a really, really long time. This is interesting. Why? Why would you need to keep singing at it? Is it weakening the glass over time? Well, I asked my engineering friend Kyle.
The interesting question actually is why the glass breaks at all when you sing at it. Theoretically, the glass should actually be this incredibly strong material. Like you should be able to take your wine glass and like bounce it off the floor and catch it. Like that's how strong it should be. But when we do experiments measuring the strength of glass, what we measure is about 100 times less than the actual strength of glass. What causes that is defects in the glass. Very, very small defects that we call cracks. And that's what starts the fracture. Everything starts with these cracks. So you're seeing at the wine glass, and it's vibrating back and forth like this. And it's going to put a little bit of tensile stress on this small crack. So it's going to stretch it. And every time it does that, maybe the crack grows by a little tiny bit, right? And you do that again and again and again, thousands of times, until finally the crack gets to a critical crack length, and then boom, you get brittle fracture, catastrophic failure. Glass is done. So that's one possible explanation. Another idea is actually that it takes you maybe a long time, 10 minutes, to actually get the perfect pitch. So you have to be able to hit this resonant frequency for long enough. And when you get that pitch, the resonance is so great that the tensile stress exceeds the critical tensile stress, even for a small crack. And it could be that you're not accurate enough. Exactly. I mean, you sound beautiful, but I don't know. I can't sound like a beautiful dying bird.
So no matter what, you need some blemish. You need some kind of crack in the glass. But putting a little one at the top makes it so you don't have to go through that process of weakening and lengthening the crack in the glass over time. All right, engineering mystery solved. That's all for me. Thank you so much for watching, and happy physicsing.
Last thing, I'd like to thank Brilliant.org for supporting the learning site in that it is
Okey. Okey, saya share balik. Ya, okey. Masa pun dah habis, ambil masa sikit je. Okey, kalau kita lihat tadi, cawan tadi atau bergelas kaca tadi telah pecah kerana resonan berlaku. Kenapa dia pecah? Okey. Kerana sistem berayun dengan amplitude yang maksimum. Okay, dalam keadaan biasa, cawan tadi bergetar dengan frekuensi aslinya ataupun cawan tersebut mempunyai frekuensi asli tertentu. Bila kita kenakan satu daya yang sama dengan frekuensi asli suatu objek, ia akan bergetar dengan ayunan maksimum. Jadi, bila bergetar dengan ayunan maksimum, cawan tadi akan pecah. Ataupun gelas ini menjadi pecah. Okay, sebab itu kalau lihat askar yang berkawat, apabila ia melalui suatu jambatan, askar tidak akan menghentakkan kakinya. Kerana untuk mengelakkan frekuensi hentakan kaki sama dengan frekuensi jambatan. Kalau frekuensi hentakan kaki sama dengan frekuensi jambatan, jambatan boleh runtuh. Jadi jambatan tadi boleh runtuh. Jadi apabila melalui suatu jambatan, jika anggota keselamatan atau askar, dia tidak akan berkawat di atas jambatan tersebut. Okey. Ada soalan mengenai resonan?
Ada cikgu.
Ada. Okey, kalau tak ada, saya lupa kedatangan saya. Okey, kalau tak ada, saya rasa saya berhentikan sini. Dan terima kasih kerana yang menghadiri kelas pada hari ini. Dan sila maklumkan pada yang tak hadir, saya tak dapat hadir, sila mesej PM saya dan beritahu sebab. Tahu ada yang tak dapat hadir disebabkan oleh masalah kesihatan, ada masalah tertentu. Okey, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum dan warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, cikgu.
Terima kasih.